Okay, so this is going to be a video, not entirely reacting, but, going through some points of Emperor, fuck, oh, Xero. This is going to be a video watching this one. Now, before I start watching this video, I need to clarify that I enjoy this man's opinions. All of them are really good, especially about that character. But that's not his video. Anyway, all of them are good. Even some of the most contradictive ones, or not contradictive, controversial ones, I should say. I didn't watch that one. There's actually a lot I haven't watched. Nope. Actually, it's just that. Nope. I didn't watch The Bad Batch. I didn't watch this one, or this one, or that one, because I'm not a huge anime nerd, and I'm not a huge fan of Star Wars. But I still like Star Wars. If I could show you, I would show you that I have like 3 Star Wars games that I've put like hundreds of hours into. Anyway, I'm getting off track. So, let's get into it.
Now, before I start this video...
Whoops, hold on. Let me fix my audio real quick. Audio input, audio output capture. Right. Sorry, this is a live thing because I was not prepared. Because I just started watching this video and I thought I had a lot to say about it. I didn't finish the video yet, but I'm going to right now.
There are a few things that I need to say. First up, I'd like to say that I did see Spider-Man No Way Home, and I did not care for it.
Okay,
now, I will say this. If you're somebody who's ingrained in the MCU formula, meaning that all it takes for you when it comes to these movies is some nice action, some jokes, and the occasional comic book reference, then you will love Spider-Man No Way Home.
He is not wrong. He brings up a really good point that my friend had brought up to me, that the MCU really likes to use nostalgia and comic book and references, which he tried to make it so that this movie was entirely bad because of that, but didn't say that about any other Marvel film. Because the reason why Disney Marvel does this is because they know what sells. And it's not our faults that we eat it up. This is probably one of the, hold on. Man, No Way Home box office. This movie has made what does it say? Over the weekend, Sony Superheroes sequel collected $11 million from 3,675 North American venues. Okay. So from 3,675 movie theaters across the United States for their opening weekend had 11 million. I don't know if that's a lot, but it sounds like a lot. And then it is currently, what, number 4? Because it says presently No Way Home is only 25 million from unseating Avatar at 760 million. Now, if it's only 25 away from that, it means it's Hold on. 35? 735 million, right? I'm not the biggest math person. Yeah, 735. $735 million so far. Right. But it's global box office title with, oh shit, oops, with 2.8 billion. I wasn't a big fan of Avatar. Oh wait, it says it right there. I'm an idiot. Anyway, but you get what I mean. They see that nostalgia and what's the word? And comic book fandom sells. You see, look at all of these right here. I'm not signed in. And look at all of these suggestions. Marvel. I'm gonna just remove that. Nope, don't add to queue. Marvel. And not Marvel. Whatever, you get my point. Marvel, right? They're dominating everything. You know why? Because they're owned by Disney. Disney know what makes it sell. Or, I guess, Sony owns Spider-Man, but Disney made a contract, whatever, I don't know. Anyway, let's continue.
There's also a bunch of nostalgia in there too, so you'll probably double love it in comparison to your average Marvel film. However, if you're someone like me who can look past nostalgia and you prefer a really good story with well-written characters that go through character arcs and a good plot, then this is not the movie for you. This is not going to be the film that makes you go, you know what, maybe the MCU still got it. No, the MCU died at the endgame. Now you're just watching its rotting carcass slowly decay into nothingness. Like, for the people that are...
Pause. What he just said is kind of true. Hawkeye wasn't that good. Winter Soldier, or Falcon and Winter Soldier, wasn't that good. You know why? Because it was just a bunch of characters doing karate. I want to watch that for the 17th time. But if you get interesting shows like WandaVision and Loki in this movie, you realize, oh my god, I'm watching 2 hours and 45 minutes worth of CGI. And I love it. Because it just connects with your monkey brain. That goes, ooh, that's so cool. He's doing flips and magic and spells. Which is why, it's a 50-50 so far. I feel like the Marvel Cinematic Universe is all depending on what comes out in the near future. Because you can't ever get bigger than Endgame. I think they know that. And I don't think they're trying. Because they realize, oh my god, Endgame was the biggest movie of the last 2 decades. That's probably not true. Avatar was up there. Damn, what am I? Anyway. Sorry. Anyway. Yeah, it's just big. You can't get bigger than Endgame.
Claiming that this is the best Spider-Man movie ever made. They're just a bunch of...
Alright. Now, what he just said, I know I keep pausing like a few seconds after I go on like a 5-minute rant. But that sentence he said right there is false. This is the best Spider-Man movie ever made. You want to know why? Let's compare it to the first 3 Spider-Man movies. which were popular and good, but they didn't age well. Critics back then didn't even like it. And it wasn't that good. Okay. Yes, I grew up watching those films religiously, and I love them. I still love them, but I don't like them more than the home series. And then if you compare these to the Amazing Spider-Man movies, these movies are infinitely better. You're telling me you really like the subplot about Peter Parker's parents being spies or scientists for Oscorp that created the spiders and made it so that Peter Parker was the chosen one. No, that's stupid. That is dumb. Okay? That is really dumb. And that is a false point. Plus, in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, you had a bunch of different fucking plots that didn't go anywhere. You had a bunch of bad relationships, and for the movie to just kill Gwen Stacy. Because that's what she was in those movies for. Just to kill her off. And whatsoever. Alright?
The Marvel normies, or MCU normies I should say, that really don't know anything about the character or characters outside of what they see on screen, or what they may have seen in a couple of cartoons out of context. Secondly, I remember in one of my videos I compared Tom Holland's version of Spider-Man to Miles Morales, and
That just doesn't make any sense as to how you can compare them. Because they're two completely separate characters that only share the title of Spider-Man. It doesn't make sense.
and I owe a big time apology to Miles Morales. Now don't get me wrong, I talked some serious fucking smack about Miles, but he did not deserve that level of disrespect.
Miles is a great character. And I love him. I played his game like 30 times. Mainly because it was easy, but that's not the point. I love his character. I love him in shows and movies. I loved The Amazing Spider-Verse. Or, no, the Spider-Verse movie. And it was amazing. And to compare this version of Peter Parker to Miles Morales is wrong. You can't do that because they're two completely separate characters. Why? Because they share the name Spider-Man, and because, they both went to high school, and they both have best friends that look similar. How's it?
On his name, because Tom Holland Spider-Man fucking sucks. He had potential, sure, but Marvel literally
How did he
threw all
have
that
potential?
out the window post
How?
Civil War, and that's what I'm going to be
How did he
talking
have
about
potential?
throughout this video.
Where
why
was the
Tom
potential
Holland
wasted?
Spider-Man is a terrible take on the Spider-Man character. Now, lastly, I would like to say that I am.
So you're gonna go from one sentence saying that this character doesn't feel like Spider-Man compared to these two. You know why it doesn't feel the same? It's because his second movie wasn't good. So they realized that. And 2 years after this movie, they were like, fuck, we gotta redo Spider-Man with this guy. And make him a likable character again. After the second movie didn't really do a good job of that. So
I'm going to go into spoiler territory, not only for this film, but every single Spider-Man film up to date, as well as the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, and people like to claim that that's what this version of Spider-Man is based off of, which is false. Also,
is it? It's not based off of it, but it's kind of similar. I guess not.
we'll be talking about the Spider-Man PS4 video game, as well as the Spectacular Spider-Man animated series.
I'm going to put a disclaimer here. I didn't watch this series. Mainly because, just look at this. Just what, I don't like that animation style. Compare that animation style to, hold on. This one. Look at the detail on him in that costume right there, and you know, like that. Look at this guy. You can't be charmed by him. But then you go to this. Wait, hold on. Let me check out which came first. This came out in... Oh, okay, so it's after. Okay, so I guess it makes sense why it's a little bit more worse for wear. That's the one that I really didn't like because it doesn't look good. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked real quick. But, you gotta say, look at this guy. He's more charming, more well animated. And I actually watched this one. But in 2008, I was 2. Actually, I just turned 2. When this aired. I just turned 2. So I didn't watch it. And I don't really like the animation style. Oh, look, I found the image he pulled. He pulled it from IGN. Wow. Did he put that? No, he didn't. Oh my god. He legit pulled the picture from... Look. It is exactly the same. But probably a bit more bit crunch, because you have to crunch it into a certain aspect on YouTube.
So if you're ignorant on any of the stuff that I'm getting ready to talk about and you want to experience this stuff for yourself, then I would recommend clicking off the video now.
Maybe I don't get the video because I didn't watch this series.
Now or forever holding your peace. But with that being said, we have got some things to talk about. Now, when Spider-Man was first announced to be coming to the MCU, I was excited. We were all excited. It was like, yeah, Spider-Man's finally going to be in the universe. And from what we saw in Captain America Civil War, we believed that it was going to be, for the most part, an accurate portrayal of the character. This, however, proved to not be the case. Now, if I would...
So you wanted Spider-Man to be portrayed one for one from the comics. And you get mad because you think that anything that derives from the comics is bad. Okay.
To sum up...
Wait. If deriving things from the comics is bad, then why are you comparing it to the comics when it's not the comics?
What makes Spider-Man the character that he is? It would be the characters that he is surrounded by in his world, as well as the relationships he has with those characters, responsibility, choices, consequences, and most importantly, and hear me out because I know a lot of people are going to get lost on this one, Uncle...
Wrong. This point, I'm not going to say invalid because it could probably be valid. You know, if there was enough explanation. But this guy, right here on this screen, this man is not needed. And let's see here. let's go back to YouTube. The importance of Uncle Ben. Because that's where he stole. Hold on, I know I saw that image somewhere. Not saying that he steals things, you know, I'm just saying that I remember seeing that image somewhere. Let's taking it down. Maybe I just can't find it. Anyway. See, look at these videos right here. 4 years ago. 1 year ago. You know, it doesn't. It said that it was needed. But this movie showed that he wasn't needed. Because he wasn't. Because you're telling me on top of Uncle Ben dying, you wanted his father figure, Tony Stark, kill himself by saving the universe and having him carry Tony Stark, Uncle Ben, and then after in this movie, Aunt May? You wanted him to carry all of those? If you're asking me, I believe Tony Stark was his Uncle Ben for him. Because he taught him how to be a hero. He taught him important values as a superhero. Helped him be a superhero. And then when Spider-Man did bad things and disobeyed Tony and said, I'm nothing without the suit. And then he said, you shouldn't have it if you're nothing without it. You need to learn to be who you are under the suit and over the suit. And then, after Peter proves himself to be a better person and can do everything that he can possibly do in the first Homecoming movie, by defeating Vulture in a hoodie and homemade web shooters, that's pretty amazing.
Ben. And I'm not talking about the black dude on the right. No, I'm talking about this Uncle Ben right here. So let's go down this list and see how it relates to Tom Holland's version of Spider-Man. As you can see by this cast right here, this is some goofy ass tokenization where the only...
Okay. Now, tokenization, I don't think is a bad thing. But when you do it too much, it can be. Okay? Like, what does it matter if MJ's black or not? What does it matter? It doesn't change the character of who she is or who she became. Did it? No.
Only recognizable character that you can find had you not seen these movies or looked up the cast is Peter Parker right here on the far right, and nobody would blame you for thinking that the girl on the far left is Gwen Stacy. But
Now I'm going to say this. He's not wrong. If I had no knowledge of these movies, I looked at her, I would be like, oh my god, that's Gwen Stacy. Because it looks like Gwen Stacy. Blonde hair, tie thing, whatever, and little outfit.
But that's not the case. I think she's supposed to be Betty Grant or some shit. So
okay,
right off the bat, they're already fucking
so
up the Spider-Man universe. And guys, this isn't net. Leads right here, okay? This is Genki. This is Miles Morales' best friend, not Peter's. Also,
so you wanted Harry Osborn in Green Goblin from the first trilogy? Who would you have wanted? Who? Who would you rather have been Peter Parker's best friend? Harry Osborn. That's the only person you can think of. Why? Because he's the only character that, comes to mind when you think, who is Peter Parker's best friend? Harry Osborn. But they didn't do that. Because the Oscorp company doesn't exist in these movies. For probably some reason, I don't know. It doesn't really need to exist.
Since I'm talking about him, let me just say this real quick. Quick public service announcement. Ned Leeds is not, and I repeat, is not the Hobgoblin. He was brainwashed into being the fall guy for the real Hobgoblin, Roderick Kingsley, but he is not the Hobgoblin himself. But even if he was, right? Like, even if Ned Leeds was the legitimate Hobgoblin, do you honestly see this fat fuck of a fool becoming anything in the MCU? Like,
that was kind of mean, but I could see it. And I don't think anyone was expecting him to be the Hobgoblin. Really, look at this face. You really think that was going to be the Hobgoblin? Anyone who could possibly thought that needs to be shot in the head.
Like, guys, come on. You don't get to be a fucking joke for 3 whole movies and then suddenly show
He was the comic relief. I'm just going to say that.
Up and be a serious
or what I believe
That's not how character progression works. And back to these other characters. When you go to Peter's high school, you look around and you see there's really no social
I don't even know if it's recording my
hierarchy like there usually is when it comes.
I'm going to pause right there. For good reason. A really, really good reason. I'm going to say this as a high school student who is not particularly fit. I'm kind of a nerd. If you could see my room, you could probably understand that. But there is no social hierarchy in high school anymore. I'm going to say it. There isn't. You know how I know that? Because there are jocks in my class who are dumb. Or no, they're good at their sports. They're really, really good at their sports. But they're in the same class as me, and they're a year younger. They're freshmen. They're tiny little boys. In algebra 2. And that's blasphemy to me. Probably because, but they're jocks. And half the class was full of them. Full of people who you would think were dumb, big, blonde idiots. But they were smart. They got A's. They passed the class. Because no one cares anymore. No one cares about hierarchies. You know why? Because it's a group of friends hanging out in high school. And no one cares. What are you going to sit at a lunch? There's no designated lunch tables. I'm sure if you were to ask if I could sit somewhere, they'd probably say sure. Or they would say, sorry, this seat is saved. Because, they have their best friend sitting there. So it's just a bunch of groups of friends. It doesn't matter. There's no hierarchy.
The high schools. Like, you don't have your jocks and your cheerleaders and your nerds and your just overall other school chaps. So when I see the
Wrong.
guy who's supposed to be Flash Thompson.
Okay. Flash in the first Homecoming movie was seen to be more popular, more liked, and yet less smarter than Peter. And Peter didn't really need to be bullied. Would you want him to be hanged right by his underwear on a hook? Well, he just becomes a punching bag, and him being a big, burly white man, beating the shit out of Peter Parker. Is that what you wanted to see?
Bullying Peter? I'm thinking to...
Also, just remembering this, Andrew Garfield wasn't bullied outside of one scene before he got his powers. And he wasn't even the main guy being picked on. It was some random kid. And Peter was like, yo, bro, you better stop it or you're gonna die. And then he was like, yeah, right. And punches him right in the face. And then, after that, Peter Parker is the guy that bullies Flash. Yes, Flash is a douche. He's mean in those movies. Or movie, I should say. Because, he's mean. But then Peter Parker just messes with him. He takes the basketball, hits him in the head, and like a couple of times when the guy just wanted to play basketball. But yes, he was being mean to the person that was painting. Yes, it was not nice. But then he shatters the backboard because paint was spilled. Are you kidding? That is not what's something Peter Parker would have done. And you're mad at this one? And then instead of, after Uncle Ben dying, Peter thinking, oh my God, Flash is going to bully me for having a dead uncle. Who the hell thinks like that? I guess if you're not in a good place, you think like that. But I digress.
To myself, why is Peter taking that? You guys seem like you're on an even playing field. Like Flash Thompson in the...
Would you want them to fight?
Comics is bigger and stronger than Peter,
what does
so
it matter?
Peter supposedly can't do anything other than take his abuse. But here in these films,
Flash doesn't punch Peter in these films. Because he's kind of a nerd. And also, you see in Far From Home that his parents don't love him. They don't even come to pick him up at the airport. Or say goodbye. So he takes it out by verbally abusing Peter. And, maybe Peter's the kind of guy who goes, I don't really care about verbal abuse. But that's not saying verbal abuse isn't important, because it very much can be.
Isn't the big, strong, tough guy of the school, and he doesn't seem to have more muscle tacked onto him than Peter does. So I don't get why Peter is taking it, because it's not...
He's not taking any punches. He's just taking words.
Like Peter is the singular nerd of the school. No, they're all nerds. It's just...
Because society is nerds. This movie grossed $735 million in its box office. And it's been out a month. It's on its way to overthrow Avatar. So I don't understand. Why you're mean
that this
into
person
that.
Flash
Like,
has it in for Peter for some reason, and Peter won't do anything about it again for...
Because he doesn't care. He just knows its words. He just brushes them off. He doesn't go like, oh man, I'm so butthurt. No, I'm gonna cry in a corner. He doesn't do that. It doesn't matter.
For some reason. Like, even without his Spidey powers, it seems like a pretty even fight if it came down to that. And what I'm getting at here with not just Flash Thompson, but all the characters of the Spider-Man home series, is that there is no interesting dynamics between them and Peter Parker himself. Like, the only characters we're meant to take seriously are the villains, the other MCU characters that occasionally
You don't want to take the villains seriously. You want to take the villains funny and don't like them. You want to take the villains as goofballs that can't do anything. Is that what you want?
pop up, and this one chick that's meant to be Liz Allen. But
She wasn't outside of. She was only in one movie. Her character did not matter. It was only so that Peter Parker could have a love interest, and the love interest be related to the villain, so they could fight.
other than that,
Her character
his best
didn't
friend's
matter.
a joke, his teachers are jokes.
His teachers? What do the teachers matter?
His girlfriend's a weirdo joke.
His girlfriend is a weirdo joke. What do you mean by a weirdo joke? That she's not an insanely likable character? Because I didn't have a problem with her.
Bully is a joke, Betty Brant's a joke, and his aunt is a joke. But man, speaking of Aunt May, let's just talk about her for a second in these films, because boy did they shit the bed when it came to her character. So their reason for casting somebody who looks absolutely nothing like Aunt May whatsoever was that they thought Aunt May looked too old in the comics.
You wanted Aunt May to look...
To be an aunt, so bad.
No, you show it.
But I went in, I watched.
You wanted Aunt May to look like a decrepit skeleton witch. You wanted her to look like that.
The movie trained somebody. She wants you to subscribe to her OnlyFans. Seriously.
Who the fuck says that? That's weird.
When you have somebody that looks like this portraying somebody that's supposed to look like this, I get a little skeptical. But I went in, I watched the movies, and instead of trying to prove me wrong, they go out of their way to prove me right, because literally every male character that comes in contact with her wants to fuck her. Tony Stark, that one Asian waiter, that one shop owner, fucking Happy, everybody.
You're mad with the fact they made Aunt May younger, and more attractive. I mean, I don't see the big issue with that. And this guy, if he hadn't met Aunt May or talked to her and had just been in Peter Parker's room when he had gotten home, that'd be kind of weird. And plus, Tony Stark was in a relationship with Pepper and was marrying her. Or proposing to... He proposed to her in that movie. And Happy's just a weird, lonely blueser. And these guys are just jokes. These guys are punchlines.
Going on about how attractive she is, and it'd be nice if she had some other qualities that they were talking about other than her being attractive, like her just being a nice person, but no, that's all she's got. Now, they try to make her a character in No Way Home, but by my...
So you're mad that they tried to make her a character that was nice after you just said that you wish that she was not just a person that was attractive? What the fuck?
My accounts, they already struck out 2 out of 3 times, and so it'd be really hard for you to make me care about her now. So when she dies in the...
Also, in Far From Home? Yeah, in Far From Home, Aunt May was working at Feast still. Because Happy went and saw her at work. Okay. And was given a check by the Stark Industries people, place, whatever. So she was still doing good because she was at a charity event and was nice.
Second act of the film, I honest to God do not give a shit.
So you're mad that you can't connect with a character emotionally. And you're upset that you don't cry over their death in a fictional comic book movie. Okay.
Because again, you don't get to be a joke all this time and then suddenly
She wasn't a joke. She was just, it just happened that they turned her into a joke. Not turned her into a joke, but based characters that were kind of jokey, like Happy. That was awkward, and when he was with her, didn't want Peter to know. And they didn't really understand. And so Happy was, they made jokes about how awkward he was with Aunt May. Okay.
become a compelling character. That is not how that works. Honestly, though, it does seem like they tried to give her Aunt May.
Also, if you're not connecting to a character, because I played the Spider-Man game. I bawled when she died. It was sad because you got connected to her over a 8-hour game. 8 seems right. I don't know. It takes me a while to beat that game. Anyway, because you see her go from a character that's so hardworking and really wants to help to a person that really, really needs to help because there's this deadly disease that's going around and she catches it. Oh no. And then she dies. And Peter had to make the sacrifice of saving her or not. And he chose to save more people because he thought, now I'm just saying, he probably thought of the line she says, if you help someone, you help everyone. Now, that probably doesn't make sense, which kind of doesn't, but it kind of makes sense if you think that, by not helping her, he is helping someone who helps a bunch of other people, and then those people help a bunch of other people, and then it continues. But if he were to only help one person, the chain wouldn't be as big. So he's helping more people by saving more people, and instead of saving Aunt May.
Storyline from the Spider-Man PS4 game where she works at Feast and then later on she dies. And they even
Aunt May worked at Feast in the comics. I think. I've read only a little bit of comics. But from what I have read, she has worked at Feast. Now, the fact that they put when you help someone, you help everyone in No Way Home didn't feel right because she never said it. But, it's fine. It's fine.
even give her the same exact headstone that she has in the game. But here's the thing, Aunt May still felt very much like Aunt May in the video game as opposed to...
Because Aunt May had been around, because the Spider-Man game had made it so that you felt like you were jumping in the middle of a story. because Spider-Man was kind of set in the middle. You go, the beginning would probably have been his first encounter with Kingpin, and then the middle being him defeating Kingpin, and then having the cause, like, chain effect of him being taken down, and all of these tinier, bigger guys, showing up and having plans. It's like you cut off one head, and two more shall take its place. So it's
to any of these MCU movies. So when
and in the MCU movies, you're starting at the beginning. This is only the beginning of Peter's story. I don't know if that's true because I've heard things saying that Tom Holland's contract with Disney is up and he doesn't want to do anymore. But I haven't looked too much into that yet. But this is only the beginning. He is just starting. He's starting to build his gallery. He met Vulture, took Shocker, and now he faced like 6 different villains in this movie, which is amazing.
she died, it was heartbreaking. She was a character all the way, not part of the way. And so I cared about her a lot more than I ever did with Marissa Tomei. In fact, the Aunt May in both Tobey Maguire's
So, now this is going to be from memory because it's been a couple months and or years since I've seen some of these movies in front of me. But from what I remember, after Spider-Man 1, this Aunt May starts hating Peter until near the end of Spider-Man 3. Now, this is just based on what I remember, so I could be wrong. But after he tells Aunt May that he killed Uncle Ben, essentially, she doesn't try and go, no, maybe it's not entirely your fault, and whatnot. But no, she literally takes her hand away and leaves. And just doesn't like talking to him and starts selling his stuff without asking, which is kind of mean, and everything. It's not good. And this character. Now, it's been a long time since I've seen the Amazing Spider-Man movies because I don't really like them as much as I did these ones or the home series. It's because these ones probably had better writing. That's just my opinion. But from what I remember, she was not a very likable character either. You never saw her do anything good. And when Peter tried to do things on his own, she got mad at him. Like the laundry sheriff bit. And something else. I don't know. But I didn't like how they treated Peter. But again, memory and opinion. So it's up to you. Oops. Oh boy.
Garfield's films felt more like Aunt May than Marissa Tomei ever did. Honestly, it felt like they didn't know what to do with the Aunt May character until it was too late. Which is a shame because out of all the characters in this cast that should have been intact, Aunt May should be number 1 next to Spider-Man himself. Now, I think it's time we played a little bit of devil's advocate. So let's compare the characters of Tobey Maguire's cast to Tom Holland's. So one thing that you guys will notice is that everybody's the right ethnicity for a change. They're also a
Okay. Now, like I said at the beginning of this video, that I love this guy's views on tokenization and everything. And this is coming from him, this creator, being a black person, I think. I'm pretty sure he's a black person. But the race of MJ isn't important, and the MJ from the home series is not this MJ. It was a completely different person because they didn't want to feel the same. And Harry Osborn isn't in these movies because Harry Osborn wasn't there. And these characters, these three, will always be white. Peter Parker will always be white. Uncle Ben will always be white. Aunt May will always be white. And these two didn't even exist. So there's nothing to compare them to.
It's appropriate and aren't trying to bog down the movie with so much humor. It's almost like the people...
That's because, you know, you don't... The Marvel fans don't like movies without humor. People don't like the first couple of Iron Man movies or Thor movies because they're boring. Because they don't have anything. There's no soul. You know, there's no... It's just a bunch of seriousness. That's why no one liked Thor 2. Thor 2 wasn't good. So, I mean, whatever.
Behind these films, at least the first two anyway, were trying to make an adaptation based off of the comic book and not Wikipedia.
But the MCU movies, the MCU Spider-Man movies aren't trying to adapt any comic books. This is.
It's funny how that works, but anyway, based off of the comic book and not Wikipedia.
And not based off of Wikipedia? What the hell does that even mean? Based off of Wikipedia. What? You're telling me that the home movies are based off of Wikipedia? What?
It's funny how that works, but anyway, whether you love or hate the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films, you can't deny that when you watch those films, and again, primarily speaking, the first two, that the people feel like people in those films. Like Mary Jane has problems at home and problems with her work. Uncle Ben and Aunt May feel like parental figures to Peter Parker. Peter Parker can't catch a break. Meanwhile, the public loves Spider-Man unbeknownst to them that they're one and the same guy. Harry has problems with his father, who's a sleazy businessman on top of being the Green Goblin. Harry and Peter feel like legitimate best friends.
Osborn and Norman weren't in
you feel
the
that Peter
movies.
has a genuine connection with the people around him. All of these relationships that he has.
You're telling me he doesn't have any relationships with the characters that he has in the home series? You're telling me he doesn't have a connection to Aunt May, to Ned, to Tony Stark? He doesn't have any feelings or connections. He's just an emotionless brick.
Feel authentic, and these do feel like authentic characters. Now, am I saying that Tom Holland's characters don't have an authentic connection to his Peter Parker? I wouldn't say that entirely, but the connections that Tom Holland's Peter Parker has with the characters in his world do feel rather hollow in comparison to Tobey Maguire's. Like this.
You know why? Because, you know, this is a group of friends. Almost. They're nerds. He's a nerd. He's a nerd. She's a nerd. He's kind of a nerd. She's not. But she's like a reporter. She's even appearing in the Daily Bugle .net. Oh, whoops. Hold on. Whoops. Sorry. .net. See? Look. This is the official Daily Bugle. And then it leads to TikTok. Look, she's in it. She's a reporter. And you want to know something? Betty Brant worked at the Daily Bugle in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies as the assistant to J. Jonah Jameson. Just saying.
There's no real twists and turns to these relationships, even
because there doesn't need to be. What did you want Ned to turn out to be some evil murderer? Earlier you said you didn't want
when
that.
you feel like there should be. They're all very one-dimensional relationships that Peter has. Like, Ned is Peter's best friend, and that's it. Michelle
Would you want him to be a secret gay boyfriend?
Jones is Peter's girlfriend, and that's it. Aunt May
Who'd you want her to be?
is his guardian, and that's it. Like, nothing May Jones is Peter's girlfriend, and that's it. Aunt May is his guardian, and that's
What? So you are saying that in the Tobey Maguire films, that Aunt May and Uncle Ben are parental figures to Peter Parker, and you don't list anything else. And then 2 minutes later, you say that Peter Parker and Aunt May only have a guardian/parental figure connection. What the fuck are you talking about?
that's it. Like, nothing makes these characters stand out. So when a character like...
What do you mean? They all have their differences. They're all different characters.
Aunt May dies, you should be broken up about that, but instead you feel absolutely
nothing
for the MCU version of Aunt May. Now, there is one character that we haven't talked about yet that does need to be talked about, even if the MCU believes him to be non-important. That, of course, being Uncle Ben. Now, Uncle Ben is the most important character.
This movie proved that he isn't. Peter Parker doesn't need to be carried by Uncle Ben. You know why? Because Aunt May says his line. And she dies. So what does it matter if Peter Parker has a dead person tell them a line? And Uncle Ben believed in doing the right thing for the right people for good. So did Aunt May. What does it matter if they have a penis or not?
In Spider-Man. I don't care what anybody tells you. I don't care what Wikipedia sites you've been on. Uncle Ben has always been the reason for why Spider-Man is Spider-Man. You cannot have Peter Parker Spider-Man without Uncle Ben. That would be like Batman becoming Batman, but his parents never got shot and they're still alive to this day. That makes no damn sense. When the crux of a character is centered around this one specific...
Peter Parker had Tony Stark die. And then Aunt May die. I don't
specific event that happens in their life, then you cannot forsake that for wanting to try to make it different.
Okay. Now I know I keep pausing, like I keep saying, like I keep repeating myself, because I'm one of those guys. But what does it matter if they're an orphan? Batman is Batman because he's an orphan, right? And he had Alfred with him to help guide him become the man he is. Because his parents died when he was 9. Okay? And Peter Parker is Peter Parker because of Aunt May and Uncle Ben, but he's still an orphan. But if you take away Uncle Ben, what does it matter? If Aunt May still believes in all of the things Uncle Ben does, and all of the values Uncle Ben does, and says everything Uncle Ben says, then what did you need Uncle Ben for?
Different or whatever. It doesn't matter how many times the audience has seen it or heard of it. That's the...
You know why? Hold on. Now I have to look up. Are we going to see Batman's parents what the fuck ever, die in the Batman? No. In the new Batman movie. Pattinson's new Batman will probably won't show Batman's parents getting killed. Now it's from Yahoo. I don't know if that's a reliable source or not. You know why they're probably not going to show it? Because we understand. Most of the people going to see Batman aren't going in blind. You know why? Because society is full of nerds. That's what these movies turned us into. Nerds. Who watch movies about superheroes doing CGI things for 2.5 hours. What does it matter? I'm going to continue.
One thing that needs to stay intact. Yet the MCU has thrown Uncle Ben out the window entirely, so scenes like this from Captain America Civil War...
Look, when you can do the things that I can, but you don't, and then the bad things happen, they happen because of you.
Mean jack shit, even though you know they were alluding to...
So, wonder if Uncle Ben did exist, right? Because in Spider-Man, no, Far From Home, let's see, suit case. You see right here, BFP. Now, I think that everyone thinks, as you can see right here, stands for Uncle Ben's initials. Okay. So that means Uncle Ben did exist. So what does it matter? And the scene that you showed...
And the bad things happen, but you don't.
Right here.
And then the bad things happen. They happen because of you.
Most people watching a Spider-Man movie understand why Spider-Man is Spider-Man, and that's Uncle Ben. It just proves that Uncle Ben took a sideline. Okay? Uncle Ben, dead. This is his suitcase. What other person can you think of that has these initials and is related to Spider-Man? BFP. Benjamin Parker. So, wonder if I say that Ben Parker didn't need to exist. Because he didn't. But, wonder if Spider-Man still feels the weight on him because people realize that he didn't need to show him die again. Because you don't need to. You understand that he's dead for Spider-Man to be Spider-Man. So maybe you know, it's whatever. Let's continue.
Mean jack shit, even though you know they were alluding to Ben in that scene. But apparently he doesn't exist. Like, Aunt May is the one who says with great power comes great responsibility. And when
Maybe Uncle Ben died before Peter Parker got the powers. Could that be a possibility? Sure. Could it not be a possibility? Sure. But it could. So there was no need for Uncle Ben to say, with great power comes great responsibility, when Peter didn't have a great power. Maybe Peter Parker got Uncle Ben killed because he was out, being angry or being a teenager. I don't know. So it doesn't matter. And then after Uncle Ben dies, he carries the weight. And then he goes and says that to Tony Stark. And then he has his briefcase. But with Uncle Ben and then Aunt May, Uncle Ben probably said with great power comes great responsibility to Aunt May at some point. I don't know. So she was like, oh my god, I should remember that. That's a great saying, because it is. And then Peter gets to hear it when Aunt May dies. So you didn't need to see him die to understand.
she dies, she's got a singular grave all to herself. She's not next to Ben or anybody. So what the fuck is Peter
That's
talking
not
about
entirely
right
true,
here?
because
You
you
mean to
didn't
tell
see
me
a
he
full
just got bit by a radioactive spider
thing.
one day, and then the next he just decided, I'm gonna fight some crime? Fuck out of here. Why would you take the most important part of this dude's backstory and just throw it out the window? It's so stupid and so lame. It's like, why is he even Spider-Man to begin with? I don't get it.
Because he's a nice character and can be a good character without Uncle Ben.
So let's talk about Tom Holland's Peter Parker when it comes to him being Spider-Man in the MCU. So ever since Far From Home, there's always been one thing that I could never quite put my finger on as to why I don't like this version of Spider-Man. But after seeing No Way Home and having them complete the trilogy, I finally know what it is. And that is, they go too all in on the fact that this is a kid Spider-Man and not an adult Spider-Man. And what I mean by that is, because they're telling a story of a younger Spider-Man, they are constantly taking advantage of the fact that he is a kid, and they constantly treat him as such in these films, despite the fact that we have Spider-Man mediums that depict Peter Parker as a younger Spider-Man without toning down the character. Ultimate Spider-Man is a perfect example of this. Like, guys, I don't know how many of y'all have read the Ultimate Spider-Man storyline, but I would highly recommend it if you're looking to read a younger Peter Parker who is still in high school. Man, let me tell you, it is straight shenanigans from start to finish. Heck, the very first villain that Peter Parker fights in this universe is the Green Goblin. And I'm not talking about pumpkin bomb glider riding Green Goblin. No, I mean this hulking motherfucker right here. Dude just shows up to Peter Parker's school and it's basically on site from there. And the comics only get crazier from that point on. And even though it's a different take on the character, it still very much feels like how the character would be in his younger years. Now let's compare this to Tom Holland Spider-Man, who does not feel like an authentic version of the Peter Parker character. Honestly, the most he felt like Spider-Man was in Civil War, which I don't know what happened, but it seems to me after Civil War, characters outside of team-up movies just started acting out of character in their own things. I don't get what that's about, but we're not talking about that. We're here to talk about Tom Holland Spider-Man, so let's continue with that. So as stated before, Uncle Ben doesn't exist, yet Peter Parker still wants to be Spider-Man, and the MCU is all in on making him childlike as opposed to making him the Spider-Man character. Nothing further.
What? You just showed two examples of Spider-Man being a childlike character. But now you're saying that you don't want Spider-Man to be a childlike character? Question mark?
further emphasizes this point than that one scene in Spider-Man Homecoming where we see him suit up for the first time in the movie. Firstly, we have to see him kind of awkwardly suit up because he can't just turn a corner and then turn back and be in the spider suit. We have to see the process of him getting into the suit, and it does look like a kid getting into a onesie. But then, for the entire rest of the montage, we never see Spider-Man stopping legitimate crime. I mean, he does stop one guy from stealing a bicycle, which, yeah, that is a crime.
It's because
but
it's
it's
Queens.
nothing serious like a bank robbery or a mugging or a carjacking. You know, nothing that an adult would handle. No, instead, we get to see
friendly
him
neighborhood
do things like
Spider-Man.
doing a flip or helping an old lady cross the street. Like he's just being a good...
He's being a good guy. You know, being neat. And maybe there was no particular crime that day. Besides the bicycle. So,
Good Samaritan. He's got all the relevance of Phoenix Jones for people who remember that clown. Also, the fact that he is in Queens and not in Manhattan. Now, he does live in Queens with his Aunt May, sure, and he would stop a crime if he saw it happening over there. But Spider-Man would usually prioritize Manhattan because it's a much larger city.
but he doesn't want to swing all the way to Manhattan every time he wants to go on patrol, I'm guessing. And if you live in Queens and you're in high school and then the next day you have a huge exam, you don't want to stay up and go swing to Manhattan, stop 30 crimes, come back, and then wake up in the morning at 6 o'clock to go take an exam.
With a lot more crime happening over there. And for people thinking that he can't go over there because it's too far away, how come Ultimate Spider-Man can do that then?
Because this, look at this right here. This is a neighborhood of houses. A neighborhood of houses. Not buildings where there are, you know, a bunch of, you know, street corners and bodegas and whatever. This is a neighborhood. I'm guessing there aren't many crimes that happen in a Queens neighborhood. But in the movies, they are in an apartment in the city, you know, where there's probably not a lot of crime. There wasn't a lot of crime in this movie, or in this town. And probably that was just one scene. You don't know if Spider-Man has taken anything down because they didn't show it. That's probably a big point as to why, you know, if you happen to see this, I doubt you will. But just saying, if you know, just have something.
Ultimate Spider-Man can get from Queens to Manhattan, but you mean to tell me that this version of Spider-Man can't do the exact same?
You wanted Tom Holland Spider-Man in a 2-hour and 30-minute movie to spend 45 minutes dealing with small crimes in Manhattan, than dealing with the plot of the story.
Thing, even though he's supposed to be based off of the Ultimate Spider-Man? Now that's just bollocks and you know it. Now I don't have a problem with them making Peter Parker an inexperienced Spider-Man. What I do have a problem with, however, is them making him a Disney Channel version of Spider-Man, which is what they've done right here. Because again, they want me to believe that this is supposed to be based off of the Ultimate Spider-Man run of the character, who, mind you, is also young and inexperienced, yet they're so night and day different. The only thing that they have in common is that they both go to high school and that's it. Don't believe me? Well, let's take a look at some of...
And that they're named Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I'm kidding.
The responsibility, choices, and consequences that this version of Spider-Man has to face. So Tom Holland Spider-Man really doesn't have a lot of responsibility given to him up until the Vulture shows up in Homecoming.
You know why? Because he was known as a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Neighborhood. He only stayed in a neighborhood. And when a gigantic villain that uses alien tech from battles of Avengers battles to make costumes and rob places in your neighborhood, you're probably going to see that and deal with it. And he's a new Spider-Man. He went from wearing a hoodie and then not wearing a hoodie in Civil War and then coming home directly after. Because if you remember, this movie, Homecoming, takes place directly after the events of Civil War. He is flying home. Although Captain America's... No, I don't think he had battled Steve yet. But I don't know about that. It's all an opinion. Whatever. So he's new. He's fresh out of the womb new.
And not even then, really, because he's really just trying to showboat for Tony Stark. But still, you get what I'm trying to say. There's no real call to action for this guy.
He's trying to showboat to Tony Stark because he sees Tony Stark as a father figure. You know, like Uncle Ben. And, you know, plus he goes and takes away his toys. He wants his toys back.
Up until the Vulture arrives. In here, the Vulture is taking scraps from previous battles of the Avengers and selling them back for a profit. Spider-Man wants to stop him, but Tony Stark tells him to stand down and let the adults handle it.
And when Spider-Man does decide to start confronting them on the ferry, he almost kills a bunch of people and does a bunch of property damage.
Disregards this and tries to take the Vulture down all by himself anyway as a means to impress
And
Tony
he
Stark.
fails.
This doesn't go well as he almost gets literally a boatload of people killed. And we also learned that Tony Stark called the FBI that would have caught the Vulture easily were it not for the actions of Peter. Now, I've given Tom Holland's Peter Parker a bit of leeway when it comes to this because originally all Peter wanted to do was go to school and do good wherever he could up until he met Tony Stark, who fills his head with all this superhero ideology.
And this is directly after the movie where he meets him and fills his head. So he thinks he's some big hotshot. But he's not.
So really, it's his fault that any of this even happened, especially since he just kind of nonchalantly dismissed Peter when he tries to tell him that, hey, there's this villain on the loose. So yeah, I kind of understand why he would do something this stupid because of Tony Stark, but also at the same time, he wants to do the right thing, but for selfish reasons. Like, his primary goal is to be recognized by Tony Stark, and that's it. And it's only later on does he want to do the right thing for a selfless reason, with him just being kind of a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. The problem with
Because that's after he gets his suit taken away and told that if he is nothing without his Stark suit, then he shouldn't have it and have the ability. Because he doesn't deserve it. So he earns it and realizes, damn, I was kind of a dickhead. And he changes.
Peter taking on this responsibility of capturing the Vulture is that there is no sense of urgency that comes along with that. Like, yeah,
It's in his neighborhood, and this is a flying man that came to his school, or his buddies came to his school to try and find Peter and take a tiny pebble rock. And also Vulture steals things that they use to make weapons.
yes, the Vulture is selling dangerous weapons to people, but rarely do we get to see these weapons do dangerous harm.
Did you want them to murder people? You wanted Vulture to sell guns to people to then have the director show that those guns directly killed people. When hold on. Now I want you to hear this. He's selling guns, weapons, bad things to idiots that rob banks or ATMs.
By means of the bad guy.
No, wait, hold on. Even if okay, now just take all I said and throw it away for a second. They showed that the weapons that they made are bad because in the ATM scene they almost killed the bodega guy and his cat by blowing up the building or the store with a false move. That's not dangerous? You don't think that finding someone that can make that, or a group of people that can make that, is dangerous? Okay.
Guys, sure we do see those 4 guys robbing an ATM earlier on in the film, and of course they need to be stopped, but that's about it. And of course the original Shocker got disintegrated, but it's not like they're holding the Brooklyn Bridge hostage or anything like that. And again,
did you want them to hold the Brooklyn Bridge hostage? Did you? Would you rather have had Vulture and Shocker hold up the Brooklyn Bridge with weapons? That would not have been needed to show that these guys are bad.
yes, these weapons are dangerous, but it's hard for you to care about that when the stakes just aren't there. So it lessens the need of responsibility for Peter to want to stop these guys. Like, let me ask you this. What would have been the consequences of Vulture just getting away? Like,
He makes supervillain weapons with the technology that he steals, makes weapons, and sells them to bad guys. That evidently could end up hurting more people. So
gets his big score, he takes his family upstate to go live in a mansion or some shit. The weapons are on the street, but we most likely never see them or the Vulture ever again. Again, the stake level isn't high enough for us to genuinely care whether the Vulture gets caught or not. And the stakes don't have to be overwhelmingly high, like he's about to blow up a city or something. They can still be small and serious. In the Spectacular Spider-Man show, the Vulture is the first supervillain Spider-Man comes across, and the Vulture wants revenge on Norman Osborn for stealing his inventions. And Osborn's life is constantly put in jeopardy in this episode because of the Vulture, and therefore Spider-Man
I didn't watch
to
that
stop
series.
Now, I can understand how a premise like that may not exactly work for a 2-hour movie as opposed to an episodic show, but there is still this feeling of tension that this guy needs to be stopped. Or for another example, in the Amazing Spider-Man movie, we learned that Peter Parker's dad used to work with Kurt Connors, and this later leads to Peter Parker in the present day helping Kurt out with his research. And later on, when Kurt Connors becomes the Lizard, Peter feels that it's his responsibility to stop him, not only because he has the power to do so, but because he helped him become the thing that he is. Not only that, but if Peter does not stop the Lizard, then he's going to turn everybody in New York City into reptiles. Now, I know that sounds kind of comic booky, but yeah. And all the while, Peter's sense of responsibility makes sense, and the stakes are high, and the tension is there. And you don't really get that same feeling from Homecoming. You just don't. You may have during your first watch through, but when you really think about it, it's...
Okay. Now, mostly what he said is kind of true. But I want you to think for a second that this is the first Spider-Man movie. Okay? Imagine you are a person that only watches the MCU and exclusively, like you were born watching, from Iron Man to whatever. You weren't allowed to watch anything else. Okay. And you were to think in the first Spider-Man movie that they should have had a gigantic supervillain terrorize the city with bombs and or the threat of killing said people or something. And this is your first experience with Spider-Man outside of Civil War, because you haven't watched any other, Marvel things. You wanted that to be your introduction. Now, I get that my hypothetical is, a bit far-fetched. Like, how can you be watching all of these Marvel things and not seeing anything Spider-Man related? But just think, maybe there's somebody out there who before Spider-Man Homecoming had not seen a single thing based on Spider-Man. And had seen Spider-Man Homecoming. And was like, oh my god, this character's cool. I'm going to go read a bunch of other stuff and watch a bunch of other stuff and shows and TV shows and movies and comic books and whatnot. So this is kind of an introduction, I guess you could say.
It's kind of a weak premise. Like at one point in time, Peter has the perfect opportunity to take the Vulture down when he's in his car and having that...
You wanted Peter Parker to talk to Vulture, web him up in his car, right, and beat Vulture in the face with punches and kicks, fucking laying it into him in his car, in this man's property, after he had just dropped off his daughter at a school dance. And he goes to said dance after he beats up Vulture and pretends like nothing happened. What the fuck kind of sense would that make? That Peter Parker beats up an old man in his car and webs him up, probably publicly outing him as Spider-Man, and everybody would know he was Spider-Man, including Liz, because the last person to be seen with her father was Peter Parker, and then seeing, Peter Parker punch the shit out of her dad and webbing him up would be fucking stupid.
Talk with him, but he doesn't simply because he has a gun? Like, let's look at this scenario logically.
You're being held at gunpoint, and you don't take the man seriously. Imagine, for a second, that you are in a car with your girlfriend's dad, and he pulls a gun that shoots bullets and can kill you, and you go, oh my god, I should punch the shit out of this man and whip him in the car because I'm Spider-Man, I can do that. No, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Because if your girlfriend's dad has a gun pointed at you and has a gun, you're gonna be like, oh shit, I should listen to this man. I should leave him alone. I shouldn't touch him or else he's gonna shoot me.
Logically, shall we? So Adrian has a gun and is threatening Peter with it, but how is he gonna get away with shooting Peter should Peter try something?
How would Peter get away if he had shot him? Or if Peter beat the shit out of this man? How would we have gotten away with that?
Let's just say he does shoot Peter, right? He does not have a silencer on that gun, so people are going to hear it and panic over the gunshot. But not only that, how is he going to justify Peter's death to other people, like his Aunt May, for example? Like, it doesn't make any sense no matter how you look at it. Also,
it doesn't make any sense if Peter Parker were to beat the shit out of an old man in his own car after just dropping his daughter off. Plus, this man probably has a reason to own a gun. He's a villain. He probably has the right to own a gun. Now, whether he's fit to own the gun is debatable and probably has lots of flaws behind it, because I don't personally own a gun, but I know people who do, but that's not the point. This is an old man in his 50s, 60s, whatever. He can own a gun. He can have it in his glove box just in case, because you don't know what the fuck to do sometimes. Plus, he's a villain. Some people are going to come after him. But then, pretend you're, Vulture, and you learn that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And Peter Parker is foiling your plans by stealing the tech back that you stole and putting his men in jail and making sure he fails at his goals and trying to put him away from life. And you don't want to, publicly come out and say it, but you see this opportunity that Peter Parker is taking your daughter to a dance. And you go, this is a good time to threaten the shit out of my arch enemy that is trying to ruin my operation that has been going on for 4.5 years. Okay. Huh? To fucking stop. That makes sense to me. What if... Okay. Alright.
So Peter could easily overpower this guy and take him down. Like, he literally has a gun on you. That's all the proof you need to get him.
How can you prove that he had the gun pointed to him? Because say, right, Peter Parker breaks his fucking arm, completely bends it, and he drops the gun in the seat and whatnot. I don't think that's proof. Because if he breaks his arm, punches him in the face, and then runs out of there, he could easily take the gun, pick it up, and put it back in the glove box with the other hand. Would it be hard? Sure. Could it happen? Absolutely. But I'm not a lawyer, so I guess what do I know?
Sent to jail. Like, what's Adrian gonna do? Tell people he's Spider-Man? Who's gonna believe him? You see, scenes like this try so hard to be clever that they don't realize with a little extra brain thought, it falls flat on its face. Like, there was...
What was Peter Parker gonna say? That Adrian Toomes was the Vulture and had a bunch of alien tech in his garage and threatened to blow things up and was planning on stealing more technology and having a group of friends develop technology into black hole guns and gravity guns and portal guns and the portal technology and whatnot? You're saying that everybody would believe him automatically. Peter Parker says this as a child, not Spider-Man, because he is just Peter Parker. Because Spider-Man doesn't know Adrian Toomes. Or at least that's what the public thinks. But the public would think, yes, Peter Parker knows Adrian Toomes, the Vulture. How can he prove that he's the Vulture? Or did Vulture take off his mask? Well, if he did, then when? When would Peter Parker have seen that? It just doesn't make any sense.
No excuse why Peter did not take him down then and there. But the plot requires that he takes him down as the Vulture, and so even though he has this super easy opportunity here, he can't take advantage of it. Which is stupid, it's idiotic. This was an easy win that got turned into a much more complicated win, all because Peter in this universe is a fucking imbecile. And even if you want to argue that teenagers are dumb or whatever, Peter Parker is not dumb. He's smart, he's a straight A student. Peter Parker has never been portrayed as an idiot before, except in the Spider-Man Spider-Man home franchise. But
When
anyway,
was he
let's move
portrayed
on
as an
to
idiot?
Spider-Man Far From Home, because I feel like Peter's stupidity got cemented in this film. So this film
How?
was the first film we got after Endgame, right? In it, the populace has come back from the snap, and
Right.
Peter is going on a field trip to Europe,
Exactly.
I believe. And while there, Peter does not want to be Spider-Man at all. He just wants to get with
Makes sense.
Zendaya. And I'm not saying that's Peter's initial plan, but if situations arise, he has to be Spider-Man. No, what he means is, I'm not going to be Spider-Man regardless.
Because he wasn't expecting a whole different universe to be revealed and for him to take it on. He just wanted to be Peter Parker and go out with MJ. That makes sense. After the year you've had, after being gone for 5 years, after battling a purple alien in space, and then fighting him, and then dying, and then coming back, and then going through a portal from a moon of Mars to Earth, and then lining up 5 billion fucking people, and then starting beating the shit out of everybody, and then battle Thanos again, and then have the Infinity Gauntlet, and then have your best, your mentor, your dad, your Uncle Ben, and die in front of you, and you have to say goodbye, and then you have to go back to your life and act like that didn't happen because you don't know that, because you're Peter Parker, not Spider-Man, because no one knows that you're Peter Parker. So you have to carry all of that weight on you, and you just want to come back after coming back to school, and after all that shit, you just want to go on a summer vacation and be normal for like 2 weeks. You want to date this person that you are in love with. You just want to be a normal guy. You don't want to be Spider-Man. Doesn't that make a little bit of sense? Is that so outrageous? I'm sure in the Spider-Man comics, after, a bunch of hard-hitting shit has happened to you, and you've died, come back to life, has seen people die, your mentors die, and everybody, coming back and being rushed and, realizing you've been dead for 10 years. That probably has a toll on you. And you just need a bit of downtime. And you know why that they don't probably show the downtime in the comics? Because it'd be boring as fuck to watch just two regular people, sit down and have a conversation for summer. But Peter Parker, just wanted to be a normal guy for 2 weeks for a summer vacation trip. Now, it doesn't last the whole summer because there's only like 3 stops, and they're there each for like 2 days. So that's like a week or 2 at the most. So why the fuck don't you want to be a normal kid?
Of whether Spider-Man is needed or not. Now, the supposed reason for why he's like this is the fact that he can't put up with the pressure of people wondering if he's gonna be the next Iron Man, as they keep saying in the film, as well as still dealing with Iron Man's death, even though he's been dead for a good while now. Alright, let me ask.
You're telling him how to grieve? People grieve in different ways, brother.
Guys, real quick, what is the relationship between Peter Parker and Tony Stark in this universe? Like, I get that they're trying to make them feel like father and son and mentor and mentee or whatever, but you don't feel any real connection between these two other than what the plot tells you should feel. Stark has only ever given Peter one piece of advice in his entire life, which, by the way, Tony Stark is the worst fucking mentor you can ask for. Dude's a fucking asshole, even though we all just pretend like he isn't one. Like, he shows up on the kid's doorstep one day, asks him to go help him fight Captain America and crew. He appears a handful of times in Homecoming to help Peter out every now and then they meet up again for Infinity War and Endgame, and that's it. You never actually see any real bond forming between.
You know why? You only see those moments in the movies? You know why? Because that's the movies. You're supposed to fill in the gaps. Be like, oh my god, they've grown together over the course of off-screenness and you know, us not seeing them for a minute and they're, you know, becoming closer. That makes sense, doesn't it? Doesn't it? I think it does. Maybe it doesn't. Whatever.
Between these two characters, any bond that they have takes place off screen. And you'll have to forgive me if I don't care about an off-screen bond between characters. Like, it's hard for me to care about Peter grieving over this guy when they've...
Also, saying if Uncle Ben had died in this universe, if he had died, and Peter Parker, and this is, you know, maybe a couple months after Uncle Ben has died in Peter Parker's arms, and, you know, he's like, oh, I need to be Spider-Man, and then Tony Stark shows up and tries to be your mentor, and you really want to fucking cling on to that, because this is a popular guy that is a superhero that saved lives, and all of this, and then he comes to your door and recruits you to his side and tries to be your mentor. You would feel like a kid. I don't know. Whatever, just...
only ever met for superhero stuff. Like, guys, you have to show these bonds happening on screen, because if you don't, you lose the authenticity that there was any real relationship here between the characters. Also, can we talk about the fact that Tony Stark gave this...
Also, in Endgame, you see that Tony Stark has a picture framed of him and Peter Parker, which means that for 5 years, he has carried the weight of seeing a person that he thought of a son to him, that he took care of, dying in his arms, and then have a photo framed of him. You wouldn't think that, you know, they would have a special relationship?
Kid $1 billion worth of equipment. Like, bro, even comic book Spider-Man doesn't get those types of perks. Okay, I mean, yeah, he did get the Iron Spider suit for like a week, but it wasn't like he got $1 billion worth of glasses that are capable of revealing almost anybody's identity and occupation, as well
that
as
was kinda
commissioning
stupid.
a drone strike on people. And that's the one thing people hate about this version of Spider-Man. He's too teched out. He feels like Iron Boy as opposed...
Thank you. Okay, now this point that this person just made is perfect for what I hate now. I hate the fact that every iteration of Spider-Man now has to have the fucking spider arms. If you look up, come on, Disney Plus. Okay, I'm not logged in on this one. Hold on. Let's see if I'm logged in on Google. No, I'm not logged in on Google. Okay. Okay, so now this is a chore for anyone watching at home. If you go to Disney Plus, okay, you type in Spider-Man, you see Spider-Man, the amazing Spidey and his amazing friends, and you see Spider-Man with this tiny little crab gadget thing. It's kind of stupid. Because Spider-Man is way more than just his smarts. And Miles Morales is way more than just his electricity and his invisibleness. Okay, now if you look up Spider-Man 2 game. PS4 2. And you go to images. Where's it? This one, right here. Look. It has the arms. I hate this. I hate the Iron Spider suit because it is so bad. I don't like it. It's just my take. I just don't like it because I don't think it's very interesting. It shows very little portion of Peter's abilities. So, whatever. So, I will give you 1 point for this out of the points that I've been keeping track of. I haven't. Whatever. Okay. Continuing.
Opposed to Spider-Man.
Look at little Iron Boy Jr. Gonna cry?
And that's not to say that
That's
Spider-Man
kinda
has
fucked up.
never used any type of tech whatsoever outside of his web shooters. No, he's used plenty of tech before, like spider drones, spider tracers, tasers, etc. But all of these are his inventions, not Stark's. And they're all within the realm of what Spider-Man would do with his limited technology. And while we did see quite a few of these gadgets in Spider-Man Homecoming, they don't feel like Peter Parker's gadgets because Stark made them. But anyway.
But he invented the web fluid. Just saying. He is going through the phase of testing his web fluid in Homecoming in chemistry class on his own.
$1 billion worth of glasses. Just straight up given
Hate
to this
that.
kid who he only has a bond with off screen.
Not a great plan.
Jesus Christ, you can only imagine what he gave his own daughter. But anyway, yeah, Peter Parker is still mourning over Tony Stark's
Give him
death
a lot.
due to the off-screen bond that they had, and therefore does not want to be Spider-Man during his field trip, even if the situation demands it. And a choice like this would be understandable.
Because think that if you are an American superhero that is in New York and only New York that you have been to, and you are expected to go to Europe, yet the last thing that you think that you are going to need if you are Spider-Man is that, oh my god, I should pack my fucking Spider-Man suit when I'm going to Europe because everybody's gonna need Spider-Man in Europe. No! You wouldn't think that if you're this Spider-Man. You know why? Because he hasn't been anywhere outside of New York and space. Now, saying space, you might think that's really far, but no, technically it's not. He's only been on a spaceship and a tiny little battlefield. He hasn't been outside that. Just saying. And plus, people didn't need him when he was in space. Only when, you know, the big threat came by and everybody was like, hey, yo, we need you. Because he was like, I need to be with them and they will need me. Because they did. So.
If we knew of the bond that they had. For example, in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, when Gwen Stacy died, Peter was like, alright, I'm done with this Spider-Man shit. And I understood why he would be, because Gwen's death was a very traumatic moment.
And you're telling me Tony Stark's death was not a very dramatic moment, and you didn't want him to feel sad and quit being Spider-Man after everybody is pressuring him to be Spider-Man? Okay.
In his life, and we got to see the bond that they had, so it feels authentic from the time she's first introduced up until the time of her death. Or like in
But with comic books, you can tell a larger story. With movies, you only get 2 hours. And the way you choose to spend that 2 hours isn't always going to be focused on 2 characters.
Spider-Man 2 when Peter stopped being Spider-Man, because him being Spider-Man was ruining his personal relationships, as well as the fact that his powers weren't working properly. And so he's kind of burning the candle at both ends until finally he decides, fuck it, I'm just not gonna be Spider-Man anymore. Now he does make a selfish choice, but it's an understandable selfish choice because we understand the bond that Peter has with these characters and how those bonds are being destroyed because of him being Spider-Man.
Okay, I can see where this connection is going to go. But it's wrong. Peter Parker in Far From Home didn't want to quit being Spider-Man. He wanted to be a normal kid for 2 weeks. He didn't want to quit. He wanted to be a normal kid for 2 weeks on a Europe trip. As a kid. He didn't want to quit being Spider-Man.
But again, we don't understand the bond between Peter Parker and Tony Stark.
You
You might
do.
understand the roles that they play, but not the core connection between the.
What do you mean by roles? That doesn't make sense. What kind of roles? Tony Stark, the man with the glasses and the money in the Avengers, was the mentor. And this guy, Peter Parker, with no money, he lives in Queens, and Spider-Man, and not very many gadgets. The mentee, however the fuck you say that. I'm not a good person in English, as you can tell. But
The two of them.
Continue.
And even after the quote-unquote elementals show up and Nick Fury is trying to recruit Peter to help take him down, and even then, when the situation is supposedly dire, he is still giving every excuse in the book to not put on his suit.
Until after, when Spider-Man meets Quentin Beck, he realizes, damn it, they need me. Fuck. He wanted to find excuses. No, keep this entirely in mind. I didn't, or I don't fully remember, because it's been a minute since I've watched Far From Home. But, it doesn't disclude everything I've been saying. Because I don't watch these movies 24/7. And it's pretty well thought out. Okay, I'm just saying. But, whatever.
And go out and fight the good fight. Like that one time he talked about how Spider-Man can't be here because he doesn't want his classmates to put 2 and 2 together. And it doesn't matter whether he was just making up excuses or not, Peter Parker would not prioritize his secret identity over saving lives. Again, you see this in Spider-Man 2 when he's saving people on the train. Or like in The Amazing Spider-Man 1 when Peter turns around to Captain Stacy to show him that he's Peter Parker and he's trying to do some good. And even in the Ultimate Comics, he's more than willing to put his secret identity in jeopardy for the sake of saving people. So the fact that Tom Holland Spider-Man would even remotely try to use the excuse that he can't be Spider-Man because he doesn't want people to figure out his identity is bullshit. And you know what's even dumber than that? Aunt May, his caretaker, his guardian, his surrogate mother, packs his suit in case he needs to be Spider-Man instead of him. Now forgive me for knowing my comic book knowledge, but this should be the other way around. Aunt May should be the one who doesn't want Peter Parker to be Spider-Man for the next couple of weeks. Meanwhile, Peter should be sneaking his Spider-Man suit in his suitcase. But instead, it's flipped upside down so that Aunt May is cool with him being Spider-Man. Remember back in the comics when Aunt May made this whole deal about him not telling her that he's Spider-Man? And they had this big heart-to-heart? Well, none of that happens here. Aunt May is okay with putting her surrogate son in imminent danger. Like, what the fuck?
Because she can see that Spider-Man can do a lot of good for the people and be a beacon of hope. But Spider-Man being, carrying so much weight from Tony's death and other deaths and future deaths, he realizes that he doesn't fully think that Spider-Man is a symbol for good anymore. Because he hasn't been able to save as many people as he wished he could. Now, I could be pulling this straight out of my ass. You probably sum this whole video up in with that sentence. But these are just my thoughts.
Are we even watching? But then Peter's character gets stupider from there because after he reluctantly helps Mysterio quote-unquote defeat one of the supposed elementals, him and Mysterio go to a bar and they share a drink together. And after talking to this guy for less than 5 minutes, decides that he's going to give away his...
Because he gives the glasses away because he thinks that he wasn't meant for the glasses. And earlier you said that or I guess I also agreed with you that I didn't like Peter Parker getting in the glasses. Which makes sense, because I didn't like it as much. But imagine you're a stupid teenager, and you're trying to be a kid, and you're trying to rush and through everything and everyone, so you make sure you're, getting everything out of the way so you could just be a kid. And then you get these glasses. saying you are the next Tony Stark, or whatever the message said. I don't fully remember. I think it says the next Tony Stark. I trust you. Now, Peter Parker has just seen Quentin Beck sacrifice himself for the entire planet, but he lived. So, and then also, knowing that he is a magical being that can fly and shoot fucking lasers out of his hands with magic or whatever, and is smart, I think it's kind of reasonable that he gives it away. Again, only opinions.
His billion-dollar set of glasses to a guy he just met not but a few days ago. Keep in mind that we are supposed to believe that Peter Parker and Tony Stark had this epic bond between the two of them, yet he's going to give the last...
But. Fury made a good point that he tried to drone strike a person on his school bus because he was sending a text. You really think a kid should have glasses that can... Or I guess you said you shouldn't. But then why are you getting upset that he gives them away?
Thing that his mentor gave to him, to a guy he basically just met. Somebody please
No, wait, no. You said you didn't believe in the mentor or mentee thing because it was off screen and you didn't feel like a connection. So you don't get to say that Peter Parker gets glasses from his mentor and then gives them away 5 minutes later because you don't believe in that.
Tell me, who is this imposter? Because this is not Peter Parker Spider-Man. This isn't even fucking Miles Morales. His name is Reek for all I care. Now, I'm not asking for
Reek?
Peter Parker to be a
What the fuck? Was that a joke? Because if so, it wasn't very funny and I didn't get it.
perfect hero. Far from it. In fact, part of the reason why people love Spider-Man is that he's not a perfect hero. He's a relatable guy. He has the same type of problems that any normal person would.
So you're saying that if you yourself were in the shoes of Peter Parker in these films, that you would do things differently? You could say that for any medium. Everything has plot holes. I don't think there's a single movie out there that doesn't have a single plot hole in it. But I'm probably wrong, because I haven't seen every movie, or comic book, or radio show, or something. So, you can always find a way to make stories shorter. But you know why they don't make stories shorter? Plot. Because you need plot to live through a story. You need a story to be a story. That's why there's plot. Sometimes there's plot holes. There's always a plot hole. I digress.
Would have. He has troubles with love, with money, with friends, with family. And what the MCU doesn't understand is that Spider-Man is what he does, but Peter Parker is who he is. And yes, Peter Parker has been known to make plenty of mistakes in the comics before, but this is just pure stupidity on a cosmic scale. And I feel like you lose out on a bit of the relatability when he's making these type of inexcusable mistakes simply because the plot demands that he does.
But it's the plot. If you can ever think of a reason as to why something happens, it's always a plot. The answer is always because it's for the plot. And you know why? Because that's how they wrote it. And I'm sure that you, a person on the internet, can probably find something better. A better way to write things. Because I've thought that thing way many times. I probably would still do it. I probably am. And there's always a reason for something. And then there's always going to be, writers that go, well, I planned it out all along. like J.K. Rowling, but J.K. Rowling is an awful person and is trying to make so that everything fits perfectly and that everything's not racist or homophobic or racially sensitive or whatever, because she made a bunch of books in the 90s that are just white people. I'm getting off topic. But there's always going to be plot holes.
Because nobody, and I mean absolutely nobody, would give away the last thing given to you by someone who was supposedly important.
But in this scene, you go through Peter's thinking process. This bar scene right here. You go through his thinking process. Because with the, added comment from Fury earlier, and him thinking maybe, man, I'm just a stupid kid that doesn't deserve these glasses, and has, a thought. Maybe he wasn't giving them to me, he was giving them to me for someone to give to someone else, because he didn't know who to give it to. Because he goes through that in this very scene. Because he thinks with his brain.
To you, to a complete another stranger that you've known for about a week or so. Not something that's
Not a week, it's like 2 days. But that doesn't make it better.
valuable at the very least. But anyway, let me talk about Mysterio for a bit, because people keep saying that Mysterio is like one of the best Marvel villains ever put to screen. And I'm just like,
Because he had a bunch of smart people that played out a story that made it perfectly go according to plan for months. And you're telling me that's not smart? Who do you think is smart, then? What villain? But
no, that's false. Mysterio is multi-layer levels of stupid. So let me
How?
explain. So one of the things that Mysterio wanted to do was get the Edith glasses from Peter Parker. And either he was going to kill Peter in that bar they were in, or he was really banking on the fact that Peter was going to give him those glasses. He also has to be extremely lucky in the case that Peter decides he's going to do a background check on this guy, which if you look him up, he's a former Stark employee. He was the...
But he could have gotten that erased. Just saying. Could have had all of his connections and supervillain pals erase that. So.
guy responsible for the holographic flashback that we saw of Tony Stark and his parents back in Civil War. But he's pretending like a dude who came here because the second snap that brought everybody back made this multiversal rift, and that's where he came from. That's his story anyway. Like, he's so confident in this plan that he doesn't even change his name, which you could probably look him up with a quick Google search.
Okay, but if he says he is from an alternate universe, okay, everybody's gonna go, oh my god, there's doppelgangers and separate people and whatnot. So they're gonna think, well, maybe the Quentin Beck from our world is a different Quentin Beck. One that was, spiteful, that Stark took away his technology and named it fucking something stupid and something whatever. But then goes to, and then, but if you say that you're from an alternate universe, you go, well, there's two different people.
But whatever, we're all idiots in this universe, right? So then he wants to use his holograms as a way to make him look like a superhero. But what is he going to do when an actual threat comes to the Earth? Like, let's just say Mysterio was...
Okay. Now I'm thinking about that. Well, Mysterio probably would have just used his drones to portray him as a superhero and have him be a superhero, because he could probably find a way to make it so that the drones never show up. And always have, certain things. And be a trusted superhero. But I don't think that was his plan on becoming a superhero. I think his plan was just to get the drones, which was pretty smart.
Supposedly fighting one of these elementals, right? And then suddenly Galactus showed up out of nowhere. I mean, is he just going to turn tail and run? Okay. I mean, I know that's all he can do, but still. Mysterio is also very lucky that none of the other Avengers decide to show up and help him with these supposed Avengers level threats. Like, what would have...
Because he knows that after the Avenger level threat in Endgame, it killed mostly every Avenger that could have done something or taken them away. Because Nick Fury goes and says, well, now Doctor Strange unavailable, Thor off-world, Captain Marvel off-world, and everybody like that. Like, what is Ant-Man gonna do? Or Falcon against magical monsters that can melt wings or hit you with giant rocks or douse you in water. But if somebody offers their help immediately as you show up to one of these things, you're probably going to accept their help and not go to anyone else because you think they can handle it on their own. So,
What would happen if a character like Ford showed up, for example?
He was with the Guardians of the Galaxy. Off-world.
The lightning and this whole shit is over. Or Doctor Strange, a guy that would definitely...
Doesn't Nick Fury say something about Doctor Strange?
Be able to see through this illusion. Like, this dude got super...
Or how would he see through the illusion if it's a hologram? Because if you just look at an illusion, if you're the Sorcerer Supreme, you don't have magical eyeballs that let you see through things. Sure, you can make spells, but if you see a magical monster that is tearing down buildings and wrecking cities and murdering people, you're probably not going to think to cast a spell that makes it so that it reveals an illusion.
Super lucky as hell. And then at the end, he wants to frame Peter for killing him and outs his identity to the public, which again...
Which is pretty smart, because now everybody thinks he's a murderer.
And I found kind of dumb, because again, if you just did a quick Google search of...
They could have erased it, like I said.
Quentin Beck, it would tell you everything you want to know. And with him outing...
Also, why would Stark Industries keep or put something saying Quentin Beck was fired from his job after Barf was revealed at the convention in 2016? Why would you put that on the internet? That doesn't make any sense. And plus, Quentin Beck hadn't done anything. He was planning it out. He hadn't taken over the world or done an elaborate heist. There would have been nothing for Google search.
Spider-Man's identity.
Hold on, let me look up some random person. Robert, let's see. Strum. Oh, damn, that's a character. Whoops. Robert Allen, here. No. What? Oh, yeah, Robert Allen has a website. I know everything based on him. Oh, maybe it's Robert Allen, the politician. I don't understand. I think you overestimate the power that Google has on the world. So
that was a very shocking moment, but it feels kind of underplayed considering the fact that, one, Mysterio dies at the end of this film in the stupidest way possible, so he doesn't even get to bask in this victory. And two, it feels like this was done purely for the sake of shock.
And if Mysterio hadn't died, he would have probably just gone to jail. He would have gone to jail and S.H.I.E.L.D. would have locked him up. But if he had died like he did, he had a contingency plan set for release saying that Spider-Man had killed Mysterio with the drones that he owned.
Value as opposed to having any real meaning, because it's not like Mysterio was Spider-Man's arch nemesis or anything. No, him and Spider-Man have been at it for the better part of a week, and so it just feels kind of hollow that a guy with no real connection to Spider-Man leaks his identity. It's like I keep saying when it came to Mysterio in the MCU. Outside of that one illusion sequence in the
that
middle
was
of the
a
film,
good scene.
what did you like about him? Absolutely not a damn thing. Here's the thing with Mysterio. He's a guy that genuinely works well when Spider-Man is in his own realm, not connected to any type of universe. And don't get me wrong, yes, Spider-Man is a part of the Marvel universe in Marvel Comics, but there it feels like he has room to breathe. He's his own character, his own struggles, and his own triumphs. But Spider-Man as he's presented in the Spider-Man Home franchise does not have the same leeway. He feels more like a cog in the machine as opposed to the machine itself. Like when you think of a Spider-Man story, you can take out characters.
You think maybe that's because he's in a movie series? That he's a cog in the machine? What about Captain America? Wasn't he a cog in the machine? Making sure everything goes to the next movie? What about Iron Man? What about Thor? Guardians? Just saying, man.
Like the Fantastic Four or Iron Man or Black Panther or whoever out of the Marvel Universe entirely, and for the most part it won't affect Spider-Man Peter Parker at all. The PS4 Spider-Man game proves this perfectly, because while there are references to the Avengers in that game, Spider-Man is the only hero in New York, and the story is, for the most part, top-notch. I think we can all agree on that. But if you were to take Tony Stark out of the MCU entirely, then Spider-Man effectively doesn't exist. I mean, he would in some capacity.
The whole movie series wouldn't exist. What are you talking about? You don't make any sense.
Like, he'd still be stopping the occasional car accident and doing flips for people and shit like that. But he wouldn't be doing more over-the-top things like stopping the Vulture or Mysterio. And really quickly, before somebody tries to use the fact that they now live in a post-blip world and therefore things are different and that's why Mysterio is able to get away with all this shit, guys, understand that the blip only matters as much as the plot needs it to matter. It's like what they did with Flashpoint in Season 3 of The Flash. Like, it'll come up when the plot needs it to, but when it doesn't, they're just gonna pretend like it never happened. Like, you have to think, half of the population was effectively dead for 5 whole years. And while the people that were still alive may not have gotten used to that event, they were slowly but surely getting used to this new way of life. Meaning that there's probably a new government system, there's probably a new way of trade, a new way of teaching, new...
What? Why would there be a new government system? That doesn't make any sense. And a new way of teaching? That doesn't make any sense either. I don't understand.
New laws were probably made, new systems were put in place, and then suddenly half the population comes back. And you got people that are more accustomed with the new system, meanwhile you got people that are accustomed to the old systems. Like, it would be mass chaos on a global scale. And instead of tackling those issues, Far From Home has elected to ignore those issues and simply say,
you wanted Spider-Man, a kid-friendly boy that swings around New York City to talk about political systems, teaching systems, and government systems after the blip. You wanted Spider-Man to do that. What? That doesn't make any sense.
well, half the population was gone before, and now they're back. And aside from some people being 5 years older, things are pretty much the same. And because things are basically the same way they were before, Mysterio is, like I said, stupid. But anyway, let's get into Spider-Man No Way Home. The creme de la creme, the finale to the Spider-Man Home franchise. So it picks up immediately where Far From Home left off, with Spider-Man's identity being leaked as Peter Parker, and so he has to deal with that. And one of the first things this guy does is heads over to his apartment. I don't know, I guess just to hide? Like, he doesn't even try to cover up the fact that he is in fact Spider-Man. It's just, well, guess I'm caught. But it's okay though, because Matt Murdock from the Daredevil TV series shows up and clears his name off screen. And in that...
Because there was no actual proof that Spider-Man had done it. And or Peter Parker had done it. There was no proof. Because it didn't show his face. Did it show his face? I'm not entirely sure. I know it showed the top portion of his body. I don't remember if it showed his face or not. But I don't think just a video would have really been a whole, evidence for Peter Parker being guilty. Plus, the Matt Murdock reveal was really good. I liked that part. So
that's basically it. Peter's still allowed to go to school and go out in public.
Because his name was cleared. And wasn't put in jail. Because his name was cleared. Doesn't that make sense? That he didn't go to jail because his name was cleared? Doesn't that make sense? You wanted Peter Parker to go to jail, get butt raped? I don't get it. What did you want Peter Parker to do? Sit in a prison cell and rot the entire movie?
And everything, it's just that his identity as Spider-Man and Peter Parker being one and the same is known to the public. And here's the thing, I knew that one of two things was going to happen at the end of the post-credit scene in Spider-Man Far From Home. Either one, they were going to be dealing with that throughout the entirety of the next movie, or two, they were just going to kind of sweep it under the rug, kind of like what they did with the blip. Like, his secret identity feels so inconsequential, it's like, why did he even bother hiding his face in the first place? The only consequence that he suffers as a result to him being known to the public as Spider-Man is that he doesn't get to go to the college that he wants to go to. And that's it. Now, I don't mean to sound old here, but I can...
He doesn't get to go to any college or any school, for that fact. He just gets to go to school. Go to high school. And after that, that's it. He doesn't get accepted in any college. What? I don't... If he had been accepted into college, it wouldn't have made really much sense. Okay.
And remember, back in the day when Peter Parker's secret identity being revealed had genuine ramifications in his life. Like when Peter revealed his identity during the Civil War storyline, this leading to Aunt May getting shot.
I'm gonna say this. The Civil War movie and the Civil War comic are completely different. They are not at all similar. They are different. The only thing that they share is that there are two sides. Captain America and Tony Stark. And the build-up for Civil War in the comics was needed. Because there was a school that was blown up, killing hundreds of thousands of kids and people. And it was needed to show that superheroes are bad. But in these films, in Civil War, there was only a total of like 300 people that had died. Total. In the breakdown of the Civil War. You can see on the screen there's only a maximum of like 300 casualties that had died. Permanently. Dead. That's not a lot compared to hundreds of thousands. Like killing kids or killing, like, or blowing up cities. Because, you know why? They saved everybody. Mostly. But that's because you can't always save everybody. But in the comic book, it was needed. And to pick sides. And for the movie, it was only shown for 300 casualties, a tiny little portion, and you know, stupid little, you know, like, oh, I don't want to sign the Accords because it's the plans changed. Everything changes. So, what the fuck ever, bro.
And Peter Parker beating the absolute piss out of the Kingpin for ordering the hit on him that fatally wounded his surrogate mother. Yeah, you get none of that here. He and his friends simply don't get to go to college. And because of that one
You wanted Kingpin to show up and murder everybody when Kingpin doesn't even know who Spider-Man is? Or you wanted somebody to go out and shoot Aunt May? Or shoot Ned? Or MJ? Or something? You wanted somebody to do that so Peter Parker could go back and beat the shit out of him before the plot really starts? Okay.
consequential thing, he goes over to Doctor Strange to basically brainwash the world into forgetting the fact that he is Spider-Man. And Doctor Strange is like, yeah, okay, sure, I'll do that for you. And as Doctor Strange is doing the spell, Peter goes on and on about the people who should still know that he is Spider-Man, when he could literally just tell them again. And he ruins the spell because he kept changing it up so many times.
That's
so
a fair
work.
point.
And again,
I'll give you
more
that.
Dumbassery. Like, he could literally just tell everybody in his life again that he is Spider-Man if he really wants them to know that badly. And that's one of the main things that I hate about this Peter Parker. There is no sense of responsibility, even when the choice is super easy like it is right here. Like, he wasn't responsible with the Edith glasses in Far From Home, he wasn't responsible in Homecoming, and he's not being responsible here. And this is probably the worst offender out of all the dumb shit that Peter has done. Not only that, he doesn't even plead his case to MIT, he just immediately goes to Doctor Strange.
Because he doesn't know that he can do that. If your whole world is turned upside down and everything after everything you've gone through and been through and you are just trying to get into a good school so you can get away from it all and tries to start anew. You don't think clearly, and you definitely don't go and read textbooks saying you could go and make a plea case. I don't think you really do that as a teenager. Whatever.
To make everybody forget that he's Spider-Man. And it's not just the stupidity of Peter Parker, it's also the fact that Peter Parker's identity being known to the public is too interesting of a concept to essentially just be an afterthought. Like, for example, in the Spectacular Spider-Man series, in the latter half of the show, Venom shows up to the Daily Bugle and outs Peter Parker as Spider-Man. Now, he has no proof to the contrary, he just tells them Spider-Man's identity and then leaves. And while people are skeptical to believe that puny Peter Parker is the Spectacular Spider-Man, it does still lead to him and the people closest to him being put under investigation. All the while, Venom is trying to unmask Spider-Man on public TV to prove once and for all that he is in fact Peter Parker, and then plans to give him a gene cleanser after that, a sort of serum that will take away Spider-Man's powers so that when the truth is revealed, he'll be powerless against his multiple enemies. It's a pretty good episode, one of my favorites in the series. However, the reason why they can't play around with Peter Parker's identity in a similar vein in the MCU is because Spider-Man in the MCU doesn't have that much of a reputation. Don't get me wrong, people know that he's an Avenger and they idolize superheroes, but how much has he done for the city of Manhattan, for example? Not a whole lot, and so he's just kind of seen as one of the Avengers. He doesn't have a huge rogue gallery of villains or anything. In fact, the only villains he's been fighting off so far are Tony Stark villains. So technically speaking, he doesn't even really have any villains of his own. And even when they are Spider-Man villains, they still are not his villains. Every villain that came in this time
No
around came
shit.
from better Spider-Man movies. Except for you, Electro, you still suck. Like when Peter ruined Doctor Strange's spell,
No
it brought
shit.
in a whole multiverse of other Spider-Man characters, including other Spider-Men. And one of the first people Peter fights from these alternates is Dr. Octopus, where he just kind of Deus Ex Machinas his way into a win with him because
What?
Dr. Octopus takes off some of the nanotechnology.
How is that a Deus Ex Machina? Why does it make sense? What is... Alright, you want to... The definition of a Deus Ex Machina. An unexpected power or event saving a seemingly hopeless situation, especially as a contrived plot device in a play or novel. Okay, so you're saying that you know, the nanobots that Peter Parker can control and choose to where it can go, because Tony Stark showed that he could do that in Infinity War. After, you know, he's battling Thanos and he can transfer the nanobots wherever the fuck he wants. But you're calling a Deus Ex Machina when Doc Ock tries to kill Peter Parker when he has nanobots on. Okay. So, I don't think that's a Deus Ex Machina, bro. That's just... It's smart. Because the nanobots are his, and when the nanobots attach to something else that is a computer, and nanobots are just tiny computers, but the nanobots are still his, doesn't that mean that the nanobots would probably connect to the device, and he could probably control the device? Doesn't that kind of make sense? That he can control nanobots that are his? Doesn't that kind of make sense?
That Peter is wearing because he's wearing the Iron Spider suit again, and that technology welds onto Doc Ock's arms, and now Peter can just control Doc Ock's arms, so he's no longer a threat. Then
Because the nanobots are his, and the nanobots attached to him, and showed Peter Parker his weakness, and then Peter Parker took advantage of that weakness, and then controlled the robot arms. Because they're computers. So...
Doctor Strange captures him, and he
I'm
also
gonna go
can
back
just
5
control
seconds
Doc
so I
Ock's
can
arm,
get the
so
full
he's no
sentence.
longer a threat. Then Doctor Strange captures him, and he also captured the Lizard from the Amazing Spider-Man franchise off screen, and explains to Peter that he has to round up the rest of these alternates because they have to go back to their own universe. And Peter does just that. He rounds them all up, and when it's time for him to go get the Green Goblin, Willem Dafoe, May is with him while he's under his Osborn persona, and he's just scared shitless, and May's like, "Hey Peter, you can't just send these people back to where they belong. You have to help them." And I'm just like...
So Aunt May is Peter's moral compass. So Peter Parker, beforehand, thinks that killing them is a good idea. But then Aunt May goes and says, no, that's not a good idea because you're killing people, technically. Because without... It's like... Isn't there like a saying that if you don't take action when you could have taken action, then you're still technically at fault? Isn't that... I feel like there's a saying somewhere like that. So he's technically killing people. And you want Spider-Man to kill people? Okay. Okay, buddy. You could do that. You could say, okay, sure. Yeah, Peter Parker could totally kill people. Yep, that makes sense. When he's a teenager. And earlier said Aunt May's not a nice person. But in this instance, she's proving to be a nice person by not wanting to kill people.
What the fuck are you talking about? You don't know anything about these people. They're not from your universe. How do you know that sending them back is not a good idea? Again, just stupidity for the sake of the plot. But anyway, after
Doesn't
Peter
Peter
gets Green
explain to
Goblin
her?
over to Doctor Strange's lair, he finds out that half of these villains die when they fight Spider-Man. And so, not wanting to send them off to their deaths, Peter opts to cure them from their mental illnesses. And he wants to turn them good or whatever. And Doctor Strange says that it doesn't matter, they just need to go back to where they came from, which leads into a fight between Doctor Strange and Spider-Man. Couple of things I gotta say here. How does Peter know that any of these guys can be cured, quote unquote? Like Dr. Octavius for...
Because he cured Dr. Octavius. And he thinks that by helping one person, he thinks that he might be able to help other people because his technology is way more developed and more advanced than any other technology that those guys experience and or have. That kind of makes sense, and he kind of says that out loud.
For example, what if that was just a straight up bad guy, and he was about to do something so horrific that Spider-Man had no choice but to kill him? What if curing them does absolutely nothing and Spider-Man ends up killing them anyway? What if...
Spider-Man is presented with a choice. Or no, first he's presented with no other option than to kill these people. And he goes and proves at the end of this movie that curing them was an option. Was it a bad one? Sure. But it indefinitely saved their lives. So you're telling me that Peter Parker, a man that has saved tons of people. It's like saying Batman should kill the Joker. Probably should. But would his character do that? No. Because he values life. Peter Parker values life. He valued life forever. Because with great power comes great responsibility, bro. And with that great power, and if you can save somebody and you have the option to, or you think you have the option to, shouldn't you try? Sure.
That this is some sort of evil version of Spider-Man? These are questions that we, the audience, know, but they, the characters, do not know. And therefore, this is going on for the sake of plot, not for the sake of the plot developing organically.
Also, Peter Parker hasn't killed a person. So it's not as mentally tasking. So, yep. But then, in the Tobey Maguire series, Tobey Maguire straight up says that he killed Uncle Ben's murderer and said it didn't make him feel better, and then Osborn died, and then Dr. Octopus died, and then Sandman, Harry Osborn died. I don't think Eddie Brock or Sandman died. Anyway, whatever. And then in The Amazing Spider-Man, he killed Electro in the power grid. Kind of fucked up. And then he killed the Lizard. I don't remember how he killed the Lizard. The Lizard might have done that on his own, because it's been a while since I've seen that movie. Remember, this is a live reaction.
Now, I'm not saying that it's uncharacteristic of Spider-Man to want to save people that are going to die.
Okay.
But that's all he knows. He knows that they're going to die, but he doesn't know in what fashion or in what capacity.
They tell him what is going to happen, and they were told that they were pulled out before they died. So doesn't that kind of make sense that, saving them makes kind of sense? Doesn't it? Doesn't that kind of make sense? They tell him how they were going to die, and then he solves their problem by turning them back into normal people. So they don't.
He doesn't even know that 2 out of 5 of them make it. I think he believes that all 5 of them are going to die. But whatever.
Because he's
anyway,
told that.
Doctor Strange and Spider-Man get into a fight where Spider-Man just kind of bullshits his way into a win. And then he takes Doctor Strange's sling ring and...
He proves how to defeat him with math. Because he's smart. He uses his brain. And you're calling him dumb when he literally used math to defeat a wizard. Okay.
Traps him in the mirror dimension. And while we do know now that Ned's fat ass of all people can use the sling ring, at the time, Peter left Strange in an alternate dimension of which he cannot get out, nor can Peter access again. So to recap, he's okay with letting
Wong can act... Wrong! There are a bunch of wizards! After he solves the problem, he can go back to the Sanctum Sanctorum, wait for Wong to show back up, see Wong again, tell Wong that Strange is in the mirror dimension, and then once Strange gets out, he could probably kick Peter's ass, but that's not the point. He could have still done it.
Strange suffer a very slow, painful death due to starvation and lack of water.
Wong is the Sorcerer Supreme. I don't think he would leave the Sanctum Sanctorum unattended for too long. So I don't think Doctor Strange would die.
But isn't okay with letting 3 out of 5 villains die that he knows absolutely jack shit about. Yeah, that makes sense. But anyway, Peter starts working on cures for all the villains, and the first person he cures is Dr. Octopus, and makes it so that the arms are no longer controlling him, and so now he's a good guy. And so Peter continues to work on cures for the other villains, and as he's doing this, the Green Goblin persona comes out from Norman Osborn, and he convinces the villains to stay villains, and starts wreaking havoc. Oh, and he also kills Aunt May, for anybody that cares about that. So then after that, Peter's kind of...
Sorry you don't grow emotionally attached to characters that you don't think are important. Sorry? I felt pretty emotionally attached. Because it's Aunt May. If you see Aunt May die in anything, your first thing should be like, damn, that kind of sucks, bro. Not, oh, I don't give a shit. That's pretty bad that they did that. I don't...
distraught, and he's like, fuck it, we'll just send them back to their own dimension. If they die, they die. That is until the other 2 Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, show up and encourage Tom Holland to continue with his plan to cure the villains. And so a big fight takes place at the Statue of Liberty, where the 3 Spider-Man are fighting the 4 villains, which I don't even know why Sandman's a villain. Like, he's literally seen Peter's cures are able to work when he saw Octavius get cured. And at one point during the fight, Spider-Man's like, stop, man, I'm trying to help you. And Sandman's just like, I don't care. Well, why don't you care? Why are you participating in this fight? What's in this for you? It's just stupid on top of stupid.
That's anyway, a good point.
Eventually we get to a point where all the villains are cured except for the Green Goblin, and it comes down to a fight between Tom Holland Spider-Man and the Green Goblin. And Tom Holland obviously wants revenge on the Green Goblin because he killed Aunt May. And the thing is, I just don't feel the tension or the friction between these two. Not only because Aunt May wasn't that much of a character throughout the entirety of the MCU, but also because this isn't his Goblin. This isn't a character from his universe. And again, why we the audience know this to be the Green Goblin from Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man films, in the story, this is just some random dude who showed up and killed his aunt. Not only that, but you can tell by looking, Tom Holland is trying really hard to look angry, and I just don't feel it. And it could be because Tom Holland doesn't have a whole lot of acting range, but still, didn't do anything for me. But moving on. So anyway, there's a fight between Tom Holland and Green Goblin, and at one point during the fight, Peter punches through the metal platform that they're standing on, letting you know just how hard he's hitting. And then at another point in the fight, he's just straight up wailing on the Green Goblin, presumably with the exact same force that he used to punch through the metal. And considering how much he's wailing on this guy, dude should be dead. Like, don't get me wrong, the Goblin can take...
But he has like super strength, you know, like Captain America has. He's like a super soldier and can take punches. So,
Of quite a bit of punishment, but not as much as was seen in this film. Goblin should have been killed, no two ways about it. Like during the night that Gwen Stacy died, when Peter finally catches the Goblin, he just starts going ham on his ass. But he stops himself mid-beatdown because he realizes that if he keeps going, he's gonna kill him. And here I feel like he definitely should have killed him with those punches, just saying. And so he's finally getting ready to kill Green Goblin with his glider until he's stopped by Tobey Maguire, who finally decided to stop watching and do something about this. So yeah, Tom Holland once again gets saved from taking any responsibility for his own actions, only for Tobey Maguire to get stabbed by the...
Because he was blinded by rage. Because Green Goblin had murdered Aunt May. Tobey Maguire killed the guy that killed Uncle Ben. And says he fucking regrets it. And he realizes, oh shit, Tom Holland Peter Parker is gonna be, sad as fuck. And gonna feel bad. And, not be good. And you can't tell. And you can tell that he realizes that. And tries to stop him.
Green Goblin, which nobody even seems that concerned about, but whatever, I guess. Anyway, they end up curing Goblin, but the universe is destroying itself, and Doctor Strange, who came back because Ned somehow knows how to use the sling ring, is trying to hold it together the best he can. And Tom Holland suggests that Doctor Strange uses spell one last time, only this time make it so that everybody forgets who Peter Parker is. And so he does just that, and the Deviants go back to their universe, and everybody forgets who Peter Parker is in the MCU. And I heard people talking about this like this is one big heroic sacrifice, and I'm just like, no, it's also stupid as well, because as I said at the beginning of this video, one of the things that makes up the Spider-Man character are the other characters and the relationships that he has with those characters. But all of his relationships are gone now. So these characters won't even get...
No. Hold on. No. You can't say all of that and then exclude the choices and consequences. If you say that these 5 characteristics of Spider-Man are needed, you can't forget about half of them. Spider-Man chooses so that people and the universe doesn't explode, and he has to live with the consequence of him doing that, so he now has to be his own person.
Characters, but all of his relationships are gone now. So these characters won't even get an opportunity to be better somewhere down the road. They're gonna
That doesn't mean Peter Parker can't introduce himself to these people.
the same old bland characters from the time we met them all the way into future installments. Also at the end of the film, Peter gets his own apartment, which I don't know where he's getting money from, but whatever. And he's got the comic book accurate Spider-Man suit, and that's it, that's the end. Oh, and Venom shows up just to drop off a piece of the...
Okay, now I only recently watched a video about why Venom could have been in No Way Home. And it's a bunch of comic book bullshit and movie bullshit. That doesn't make any sense. But it made sense to me. Maybe that's because my dumb idiot brain goes, haha, he makes sense, good job. But I will leave a link to the video of why why I think, why someone else thinks that Peter Parker, Eddie Brock from the Venom movie is in No Way Home. Hold on, what else did he say?
And that's it.
Oh, also, now I've heard people say that the new Spider-Man movies or show or comic books or something are going to be bad because Peter Parker doesn't have any friends and or choices. Okay. Yeah, sure. But that doesn't mean he can't make any fucking friends. In the Spider-Man game, he basically, at the beginning, only has one friend. on the police force to help with his Spider-Man stuff. And that's it. No one else is helping him until MJ comes back and helps Peter with a bunch of stuff. But I just think that Peter Parker now has his own character and ability to grow. I know this person is saying that Peter Parker in these movies have no relationship and isn't Peter Parker. But now that his film series is over, and now that we will probably see him in other things, we will get to see him become his own person and his own thing. And I think this person needs to realize that not everything has to be a one-to-one adaptation of the comic books. And a lot of people need to realize that. It's like the same thing with the Mandarin. Now people are like, man, the Mandarin was such a bad character because I didn't get me comic booky weird character with the 10 rings. They go I didn't want that. I knew that character existed, but I didn't want that. Because it would have been bad. And the reason that so many people got upset over it, to the point to where Marvel was like, oh fuck, we gotta change it so that the Mandarin was only an actor, but the real Mandarin's mad and captured the old Mandarin and murdered him because of slander with his name and the 10 rings. Okay, sure. I also didn't watch Shang-Chi. So, whatever.
That's the end. Oh, and Venom shows up just to drop off a piece of the symbiote and then leaves. Which I don't know if they're going to try to do like a black suit thing, because that seems like it'd be pretty hard to do considering that all of Peter Parker's relationships are effectively dead now. Like Peter having Doctor Strange make everybody forget him.
But think about it. After Peter Parker loses all of his family and or friends, that would be the perfect time for him to get the black symbiote. For him to realize that he's alone and he needs this alien to help him be Spider-Man. Wouldn't that be a cool detail and or character story? I don't know, it's just my opinion.
It feels almost like they're trying to go for a light reboot with this character because they realize that they fucked up so many times with him.
They didn't, and they aren't.
And so they're putting him in a new starting point so they can do better with him. But as far as I'm concerned, they've had their 3 strikes and they are out. I've heard a lot of things from people like, man.
Nice job. Saying that they had 3 strikes and they're out. Nice. Because, you know, the second Thor movie was totally a strike. And, you know, a bunch of other movies have gotten, you know, strikes. Just ignore that.
This version of Spider-Man really grew into his own person. And I'm just like, no he didn't. What the fuck are you talking about? What character development?
He has the ability to grow into his own person now.
Took place. Like, this is how all 3 of these films go, right? Peter Parker is a dumbass who never takes responsibility for anything, except for when he makes a mess so big he has to clean it up. That is Tom Holland Spider-Man in a nutshell. He does not encapsulate the character at all, and anybody who says so otherwise is smoking something a lot better than what I've got. And don't get me wrong, you can like the character if you want. You can like these movies if you want. But what you can't tell me is that this was an amazing take on the character. It wasn't. I should know because I've actually read the source material. But even if you hadn't read the source material, even if you just watched the cartoon, you would realize that this ain't it. I know quite a few people that are saying that this was the bestest Spider-Man movie ever. I guarantee you they will not be saying that in a couple of years from now. Once the nostalgia's worn off and they're ready for the next...
Of course, because that's how it works. Because now, if you watch Endgame, all of the shock factor is gone. You know why that is? Because you've watched it 30 times. But you know why all the nostalgia is going to be gone from No Way Home? Because you've watched it so many times. Not saying that you're going to watch it 30 times, but saying that you've at least watched it a couple of times and the nostalgia factor has died down. That's what Marvel does. They keep giving you nostalgia and comic book references, so it gets your fucking brain going, oh shit, a comic book reference. Oh my god, that's so fucking cool. I can't fucking wait for the next one. That's why they keep doing it, because we keep eating it up. Like I said earlier, like 2 hours ago.
Big thing. Like, this is good to them now, kind of like how Batman and Robin was good to kids back when it first came out. And keep in mind, this isn't about having a one-for-one recreation of the source material. But the thing that I have to say about that is, and pay attention to me people, because this is going to be one of the most important things I ever say on this channel. When it comes to adaptation, your story does not have to be 100% historically accurate, but it still...
So then why the fuck are you mad at things in this review? What the fuck? You just made all of your points irrelevant.
Still has to feel historically authentic. Think of it this way. If you guys like Spider-Man PS4, or the Spectacular Spider-Man series, or Ultimate Spider-Man, each of these mediums have a drastically different take on the Spider-Man.
And you're telling me that the movies can't have a drastic take? You're telling me they have to be one-to-one with the movies?
Character, but it still captures the heart of Spider-Man.
That's what these movies did. They flipped everything. They showed that you didn't need Uncle Ben, but you could have had Uncle Ben. They made it so that Uncle Ben could have been there, and it could not have been. It's all up to you in the way you want to see it.
And understands what makes this character great. Like, Tobey Maguire's first two Spider-Man films don't get it 100% accurate either, but they capture enough of the Spider-Man character to where you can look at these films and be like, okay, this is primetime Spider-Man. And for all those saying that Tom Holland is based off of the Ultimate Spider-Man comics,
it's not true.
Andrew Garfield is more Ultimate Spider-Man than Tom Holland, so I don't know what you're talking about. But you can do something different with the Spider-Man character, but you can't be so over-the-top different where the character is almost non-recognizable. Say,
so, you are mad that Spider-Man is different, but you're saying that you don't like it when Spider-Man is too different. So what's the cutoff point then? When's the cutoff point of Spider-Man being Spider-Man and then Spider-Man not being Spider-Man?
For his uniform, his powers, and his villain. I understand part of the reason why Tom Holland Spider-Man is like this is because he is ingrained in the Marvel formula of the MCU, but still, that's no reason to not give us his story.
You think the reason that they are given... Hold on, wait, what did you say?
Marvel formula of the by Tom Holland.
You think the reason Tom Holland Spider-Man is a part of the Marvel formula? Because he's in the Marvel formula.
Spider-Man is like reason to not give us historically authentic Spider-Man stories. But let me know what you guys think. Is Tom Holland an excellent Spider-Man? Should we give him another chance now that his universe has essentially been rebooted? Or are you done with this particular take of the character?
No.
As always, support your Emperor by leaving a like and clicking subscribe. Also, follow me on these social media.
Just to fucking...
Now, before I start this video...
Here. Just to show you. Look. YouTube. Just to show you that I support you. Emperor. Fuck, I forget how to spell your name every time. Sorry, my Emperor King. Just hold on. Xero. Sorry. Just to show you that I support you. Subscribe. Notification.
Now, before I
And a like. There you go. Well, it's also my other channel. So that's pretty much it, right?
is because he is ingrained in the Marvel formula of the MCU, but still, that's no reason. Another chance now that his universe has essentially been rebooted. Or are you
Just
done
making
with this
sure that's
particular
all of
take
it.
of the character? As always, support your Emperor by leaving a like and clicking subscribe. Also, follow me on these social media platforms. You wouldn't want to commit treason now, would you?
Okay. So yeah, there's that. That's what I think of your video. Now, if you would like to explain why I'm wrong, or whatever the fuck, text, comment on it in like 3 hours or 5. I'm tired. I'll go to sleep. This is a 2 hour, almost 3 hour. This is longer than Spider-Man No Way Home.